Hello and welcome to another video from the only channel you need to not only survive the current apocalypse but actually enjoy it. And today's video is going to be about preserving cast nets, actually preserving any kind of fish nets. Over the last 3 or 4 months, my teacher and myself have made several cast nets, and once those nets were completed, we dipped them in a preservative. Every time we did so, we set up the camera, got a few different angles, a few different nets, so that you can get an idea for what's involved in dipping your net. We are now putting our net into the tub that we're going to soak the net in, and we're going to put it in neatly, rolling it around into a coil so that we don't have to put too much of the net dip in there. We're going to tie a piece of line on the end of our rope so we don't lose it, and we'll be able to get it out of there without having to dig through all that paint. There you go. The product that we're going to use to dip these nets is called DURALUX Plastic Net Dip, and this one here says green M690. If you have a marine hardware store anywhere near where you live, you can get this off the shelf, because in general, if you live near the water, a lot of the commerce around marine hardware is going to be commercial fishermen who have to dip their nets. If you can't get it, you could probably get it delivered somehow. But another option, recently we had a man show up at the Seafood Museum with a purple cast net. And when we asked him where he got his dip, he said he used automotive paint. Well, I had noticed in the past that this stuff smells just like cheap automotive paint, because I used to paint cars.
This is real important. When you open a can of paint or anything, put a line on it before you open it up. And always put it back in the same spot, because the manufacturer, if you do it this way, it's going to always have an air bubble. And it used to depend how you paint, you get down that far.
If you notice, the can I'm holding has a red arrow painted on its side, but it's also got a red arrow on the top, and there's a reason for that. It doesn't take much of this stuff to dip a net. So if you buy a gallon, you're going to get a lot of nets out of that 1 gallon. But the only way you can do that is to make sure that the lid is sealed tightly. Now, something that my teacher found out just by accident is that if he put the lid on in the exact same spot every time, that it would still be good even when he got to the bottom. Whereas if he just put it in a random position, by the time he got halfway, it would start having a film on top of it.
I already put a little minute first. I already dipped 2 nets for that. So it's not bad, huh?
Not at all.
It's not going to take all of this one.
Okay.
If you don't clean it out, it won't fashion good. And that stuff too expensive. Breathe. You don't get that stuff in your hands because it's hard to get off. Put it on this swivel right here. And that way it won't mess up. That's 4 minutes.
Yeah, that's out. It's out of the stuff.
Let's see if that holds it now. When you're making a brill net, if you sort of pick it up here, this will fall down. So if you tie it like this, see, like I said, just keep it from falling down. That way you hang it up. See what I'm saying?
We're about to dip this brill net. Now with a brill net, if you try to hang it by the hand line, then your brills are all going to go up and the net's just going to go into a bunch. So the first thing you need to do is tie your net to your swivel so that way the brills don't come out, that the net stays together as it's being dipped. And when we put the net in, since we want to go ahead and dip the rope, we're going to throw the whole rope in there as well. Now that the net has soaked for the prescribed amount of time, and we've actually left it in a little longer than we should, we're going to go ahead and pull it out of this dip tank and let it hang to dry for about a day before we take it out into the yard and spread it out. So let's do that now.
most of it off, because it's already soaked in real good. It just makes it dry quicker.
Yeah, and there's really no reason to have to, you know, it's a synthetic line. It's not going to rot from being in the salt water.
You know, all this kind of stuff it's common sense, because you would hang it up with dripping wet.
Well, if you had about 100 foot.
I didn't even see Dad do that. So I just, from the first video, I said, shoot, I'll lock it from my office. It's already soaked in with it. I make it dry quicker.
Okay, we've got the horn tied off to the brails, to the swivel, so that the brails don't come out, and we're pulling the net out of the dip tank so we can hang it up to dry.
Now we're doing the hand line.
Okay, the way that we hung this thing to dry, just because we don't have the room, is we've got the net draped over the line where we've tied it off. But in a little while, after this is drained for a while, we'll take and move the rope to another spot so that that particular spot will have a chance to drip dry too.
What's that?
So we're going to have all the net and all the rope hanging over our bucket to catch the dip as it's draining from the net. Okay, we're still trying to tighten up the bottom of this net. Once we're sure every one of them knots are nice and tight, we'll hang this net up in a tree. Okay, we're untying our net and about to take it out and hang it up for its final drying in the sun. You want to spread this thing out so that when you go to use it, the sides ain't all stuck together.
There's a long line on this one.
Yeah. That's alright, I'll do like the last one. I'll take that net home and cut half the line off and put it on another net.
So we take it outside. We leave that tied there, right there, because it keeps it from coming down.
Okay. Yeah, so where we had that net hanging, the rope has kind of squished all the netting together and it's sticking to itself. So we're going to take and remedy that right now. After the net has drained back into the dip tank, then you have to separate the net so that it doesn't just form up into a solid chunk of gooey stuff. But in the process, you're going to get things on it like this leaf and this oak flower. And even in the process, you're going to drag it through the ground and get dirt on your leads and your lead line, and all of that will come off. As soon as you start using this net and throwing it down into the ocean, it's only going to take 2 or 3 throws before all of that comes loose from that gooey net dip. Human beings have been making fishing nets for thousands of years, and archaeologists are stumbling upon these things on a pretty regular basis. But in general, when they find a fishing net, what they really find is a pile of rocks with holes drilled in them, laid out into a pattern that could only have been the weights in a fishing net. The reason for that is that the fishing nets in those days were made out of natural fiber, such as animal hair and plant fiber, which does not last very long. And in fact, if you're fishing with them, they really aren't going to last very long. And so you have to know that the people who made those nets, who put thousands of hours into making those nets, would have had come up with some kind of way to preserve them. Don't know if they rolled them in tar or if they rolled them in some kind of tree sap, but you know that they had to have maintained those nets. It's just too much work to make a new net every couple of months. And that's basically the reason that we preserve our nets today. It takes a lot of work to make a net, so certainly you want to do everything in your power to keep that net from rotting away. Now, the preservatives we use today actually do more at preserving the knots than they do at preserving the material. When nylon first came out, which is what we use to make handmade nets today, it didn't hold together very well. If you cut it, it just completely unraveled. So they started to run this material through a gooey substance called a bonding agent in order to hold the fibers together. An added benefit of that is when you tied a knot, the knot's held together. Now, over the course of time, the bonding agents have improved to the point where the nylon holds together, but the bonding agent doesn't stay sticky. So when you go to tie a knot, the knots have a tendency to slip out. So when you dip a net, the dip we use is similar to automotive paint. You're basically taking a net that is very susceptible to losing its knots and dipping it in a material that glues the knots together. You know, nylon isn't going to rot like plant fiber. But not too long ago, even we here in North America used plant fibers to make our nets. Nets were made out of cotton for years and years and years. It wasn't until about World War II that nylon became available in the fishing industry. So when we dip a cotton net, we're not necessarily preserving the knots, we're preserving the material itself, because if you tie a knot with cotton, it stays. And in fact, I think the next cast net I'm making it out of cotton, even though I know that is very susceptible to rotting. If you make a cotton net, you can still dip it in the regular marine net dip that's available for nylon nets, but the way they used to do it is to dip the nets in a product called COP-R-TOX. COP-R-TOX kills invertebrates. Everyone I know in the marine industry says that you can no longer get COP-R-TOX because it is too toxic for marine invertebrates, for the marine industry to use it. But that doesn't mean you can't get it. In the building trades industry, they still sell COP-R-TOX for a wood preservative, and that wood preservative, COP-R-TOX, is the exact same product that they used to put on cast nets. So if you want to make a traditional cotton net and you want to preserve it with COP-R-TOX, don't let anybody in the marine industry tell you you can't get it. You can still get it at a lumber yard. Now, COP-R-TOX is a brand name, and some lumber yards are not going to carry COP-R-TOX, but they will have the exact same preservative under a different brand name. You simply have to ask them for a copper-based wood preservative. Whatever they give you, you can dip your net in it. The reason I'm telling you this stuff is because I researched it in depth, and it took a long time to figure all this out, and in fact it took too much time just for only one person to benefit from the information. If you don't want to survive, don't listen to me.